Hello, class. In this video, I'm going to answer two questions from your homework. The first question has you examine a relative frequency distribution. Um, so it looks like we're provided with data here from 50 households, and we asked each of the households to tell us how many children they have under the age of 5. And we have a table that looks like this. And we are asked to calculate the relative frequency. So I can divide each data point by 50 to get the relative frequency. We can do this in Excel or just use your calculator, but I'm going to enter this into StatCrunch. So I clicked on the two little boxes to the right of your data, and it opens in StatCrunch. I'll do that again in case you missed it. You click on the two boxes, open it in StatCrunch, and this table is now imported into StatCrunch. And now the next thing we can do, maybe I'll make the titles a little bigger, just so you see what we're working with. If you sum these numbers, this second column, it should total 50, because it says we I guess, poll or we go door to door and get data from 50 households. But if you want to see me sum that data quickly in StatCrunch, we can do it by pressing Data. We're going to do a computation, expression. I want to calculate the sum. So if I scroll down, I look for the word sum. And then inside, what column do I want to sum? I want to sum the number of households. So that's this one here. I double click it. I press OK, press compute. And here it is. If I were to add all of these together, I would have 50. Now, for the relative frequency, we're going to, and I'm just going to extend this 50 all the way down. Oops, excuse me. Right, so, because I want to divide 17 by 50 to get the relative frequency, 13 by 50 to get the relative frequency, 16 divided by 50. Right, that's how I'll fill in these boxes here, right? So again, you could do this in StatCrunch, you can do this by hand, you can just use your calculator. I'm doing it in StatCrunch just to get us familiar with StatCrunch. Whoops, where is my StatCrunch data? Here it is. Okay, so to do the division, again, you can just use your calculator and divide 17 and 50 and write your answer here. But I'm going to, again, press the data key, compute, expression. I want to do the number of households divided by, here's the division key, and then this sum, right? That was the 50. Or I could really just type in 50 if I wanted to, but I'll click this. And I press OK. I press compute. And now, if you were to use your calculator and do 17 divided by 50, you'd get 0.34. 13 divided by 50 would be 0.26. And if you sum all of this, it should equal 1, right? That would give me 100%. All of the percents should be 100%, right? So think of this as 34%, 26%, 32%, and so on. 6% and 2%. So let's record our answers. I'm going to copy all of this data into here. Okay, so I've transferred this column into here. It says type integers or decimals, do not round. I haven't rounded. So I'm going to click check answer, and I get the green check mark, so I know we've done that correctly. Now it asks a few questions. What percentage of households have 2 children under the age of 5? So 2 children under the age of 5 would be 32%. So I'm going to type in 32. And notice the percent sign means we have to change a decimal to a percent by moving the decimal 2 places to the right. Check my answer. I get a good job. Next it says, what percentage of households has 1 or 2 children under the age of 5? So 1 or 2. So I have to add these two together. So 26% plus 32% would be 58%. And then I have to click the check mark. And we get the good job next question. Okay, so let's take a look at question number 3. All right, so here it says, it looks like we're trying to determine if the data is discrete or continuous. So it looks like we talked to 40 households and we're asked to determine the number of televisions in a household. So since you can count TVs or televisions as 0, 1, 2, right? This is discrete data. All right, this is something we can count. It can take on a real number or a real value. So I'm going to say discrete. Right, the given data are discrete because they can have only whole number values. And I check answer, I get the green check, good job. Next, it says to construct the frequency distribution of the data. So this is similar to what we did in question number 2. If I click on the table, here's all my data. So it's quite a large amount of data. So let's open this up into StatCrunch and see what we have. Okay, so I have to look through my data and see how many times did 0 occur, how many times did 1 occur, 2, and so on. So maybe we can sort our data. It might be easier to come up with those counts. So if I click on, let's see here, data, and then sort, select column 1, variable 1, right? That's this column here. Again, select column 1, and I press compute. Now it's easier to see my data. How many times does 0 occur? How many times does 1 occur? 2 and 3 and so on. Okay, so I can transfer my answers, right? How many people have 0 televisions? Well, that only occurred 1 time, so I'd put a 1 here, right? And then how many households had only 1 TV and 2 TVs? So I can fill that data from my StatCrunch information. Oh, where'd it go? Here we go. So for 1 television, I'd have to count all of my 1s. And for my 2s, and you know, all the way down, a couple of people have 5 TVs, right? So for how many people have 5 televisions, that would be 1. How many people have 4 televisions? 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'd put a 4 here. So let me just complete this data. Okay, so I've entered my frequencies here, right? And again, it does say we have a survey of 40 households. So if I add all of these numbers, the total should equal 40. Now, of course, you at home that are completing this problem, your numbers might look a little different. Maybe this is a 50 or a 60, but the idea is the same. Okay, so let's check our answer, and we get the good job. Now, the relative frequency, right? To compute that, we would have to divide 1 by 40, 14 by 40, 14 by 40, and so on to compute the relative frequencies. This time I'm going to use my calculator to do it quickly. So if I were to do, again, I'm basically dividing these numbers all by 40. 1 divided by 40. And then 2 divided by 40. Oh, actually, it's not 2 divided by 40. It should be 14 divided by 40. Excuse me. I press enter. These are the values that I'm going to enter here, here, and so on, right? 1 divided by 40 was 0.025. 14 divided by 40 was 0.35. I need to do 6 and 4. So 6 divided by 40. And 4 divided by 40. Right, so these are the values that I would enter in here. And I didn't have to do 1 divided by 40 again because I know that it's 0.025. And same with the 14, right? I know that these two numbers are going to be the same. So let me transfer this into here. So you can see I've placed these boxes with my numbers here. And when I add all of this together, I should end up with 1, right? All of these added together should total 1 or 100%. So I'm going to check my answer, and I get the well done. So the percentage of households in the survey that have 3 televisions, that would be 15%. I check my answer. Well done. 4 or more televisions. So that would be, I have to add these two together. All right, that's the 0.1 plus 0.025 to get 12.5%. Check answer. Well done. And then it asks for a frequency histogram. Okay, we can do that. Let's go back to StatCrunch. Right, this is where our data was housed. I press stat. Oops. I press graph. Sorry about that. And look for a histogram. And var1, that's where our data is housed. And if you want to start, you could start at 0, you could start at a different number. I'm going to start at 0, and my width will be 1. And let's just take a look. Right, because all of these graphs, they look like they start at 0, and it looks like the width is about 1. So that's what I'm going to use. And this is a frequency histogram. I press compute, and there it is. So let's see which one this looks like out of our choices. I think choice A looks good. And indeed, choice A worked. And that was a frequency histogram. Now, relative frequency, it's going to look the same. I know my answer is D, because D looks like letter A. A frequency and a relative frequency histogram will look the same. But just to confirm that, if you go back to StatCrunch, right here was my histogram. Oops, a little too big. If I press Options, Edit, I'm going to change the word frequency to relative frequency, and notice the graph looks the same. All right. So I press check answer, and it says well done. And then it says describe the shape of the distribution. I think this is probably a little bit skewed to the right. And I press check answer, right? Because it kind of tapers off to the right. And that should do it for questions 2 and 3. Thank you for watching.